Hello, my name is Mark Rose. I'm a member of the Presque Woodturners, and tonight we're going to demonstrate the making of a wooden flask. This is the product that we're going to work through in stages, and we'll go all through the different steps and techniques of producing this tonight. Okay? What's that? That it's not full, drink not included. So now, Ken, if you could go to turning wooden flask. I promise I will not exhaust you with a presentation, but I want to give a little history. First slide, please, Ken. So the history of wooden flasks, they were invented in the 7th century, okay, in Europe. There's evidence of them being used in the Viking Age, the Colonial and Revolutionary War, and in the American Civil War. They're currently still popular in Serbia, especially Serbia, Australia, and the United States. Next slide. They're typically made from maple, beech, willow, and apple. In the past, they have been used to carry water, wine, olive oil. They had a lot of use in military uses for carrying powder, gunpowder. Okay, there's two primary forms of construction. This is staved construction. So if you see, there are staves like a barrel that go around the outside, and then they put panels on the end. Okay, both of these are staved. That's one type of method. Tonight we're going to go to the next one, and this is hollowed construction. These are canteens made in Serbia. Okay, and so they're made of wood. They're hollowed out like we do it, and that's kind of where I got the inspiration when I saw these. I thought they're really beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the first step. This takes a while. By a while, I mean it will take more than 2 hours. We don't have that long. Okay, so the way I've set this up is I'm going to do this in stages, so you can see different steps as we go through it. You won't watch every step in its agonizing stage. Okay, but the important thing is layout. First, most important thing is layout, and I'm going to start here. So this is my blank. Now the finished piece is walnut with 2 pieces of maple and walnut caps. So I did 2 pieces in that design. You'll notice this one is cherry, 2 pieces of walnut. This is, I'll call it waste wood. It's poplar on the outside. See why it's waste wood for a while. Okay. What was neat that I was able to do is I found a really figured piece of walnut. It wasn't a burl, but it was curly figured. It had a lot of movement of the grain, and I was actually able to actually put it on a bandsaw and resaw it. And then I flipped the 2 pieces, moved them in on the outside here, so they're hooked now. See, nice grain on both sides. It looks good. Okay, so this is what we start with. This piece is turned in multiple axes. Okay, we start out turning it this way. Okay, spinning it this way with the end grain running this way. So it's basically a really thick spindle. Okay, once we get it roughed down and essentially into this configuration where it has a sphere, then we're going to turn it around and spin it this way. Okay, first it's going to spin this way. Next it will spin this way. We'll go through the steps to do that. So we're going to mount this multiple times. Okay, so because it's mounted multiple times, and especially because there's 2 different styles of wood, contrasting colors, you have to take the time up front to lay it out so that you have success. Because when I turn all this waste wood off, I lose my lines, my layout line. You'll see I've got markers here on both sides that eventually I transfer into the roughing piece. So I know I find the center of the wood here, the exact center. If I'm off a 1/4 of an inch when it's done, I'll have way too much maple on one side and way too much walnut. Okay, it'll distinctly be obvious. Okay, but you want to get as close to the center as possible. So I've laid it out. I found the center here. I have found the center on this end. And that's how we're going to mount it to start turning as it spins between center. But then I've got to find out what's the center from this side. When we put it back on the lathe to spin this way, it's got to be right in the center. And if you don't find it before it becomes a ball, really tough to find the center of a ball. Okay, it's a lot easier to find the center of a square. Okay, so the takeaway from this is find the exact center here. I put a center punch in. The exact center here. I put a center punch. Exact center on this side. Exact center on this side. And I've laid out. You can see the pencil marks here. That is where the sphere is going to be. I've picked where the sphere is going to be turned. Okay. Just going to pass this around. You can look at it. We are not cutting on this tonight, actually. I brought this out so you could see how the layout is done. Take a look at it. If you have any questions, let me know, but I'm going to keep moving along. So, any questions on the layout? The next thing we're going to do, and I'll do this, again, this takes a while. So I have partially roughed out this part. Started like that block. I've roughed out about 80% of it. For those that enjoy the excitement of watching rough turning, we'll turn 2 inches here, see how it's done. Then we'll get into turning the sphere. Okay, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but rough it in this stage. Then the next process is creating the sphere. Sphere will come out looking like this. Okay, and then here I have marked my center spots. I have a really small hole here. That's the exact center of that sphere. I have another hole over here. This hole is going to allow me to chuck it up and hold it as I spin it in the other direction. Okay. Then as we move towards the ends, we'll talk about how we make the caps, how we make the top with the cork, and we'll go through that. So at the end of tonight, we're not going to have one finished piece, but you're going to see every stage on how it's made as we progress through. So any questions? All right, very good. Let's start on this. Take me just a moment to get it chucked up. It's not just sunshine that's giving us warmth, it's also the southwesterly breeze. 7 miles per hour down for Erie, 8 miles per hour, 8 guns, 10 miles per hour over Jamestown. Oh, I'm sorry. God, this is between centers still. And I'm going to get my face mask. So, centers have already been pre-established, but the load here. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Keep me apprised if you can't hear it. Okay, got this loaded. Tighten it down. Again, I did the roughing here. I really tightened it down. There we go. I roughed this much out. The sphere, the size of the canteen will be 6 inches. So I've got a 6-inch diameter here. With the calipers, I'm going to measure exactly 6 inches over the center. So all of my calculations that I'll go through on how to lay out the sphere will be based on making a 6-inch ball. Okay, that's the diameter of the flask that we'll be cutting. Okay. Also in the layout, I've already started laying out my sphere. This is the exact center line here. Okay, and then I'll talk about these other lines. But this from here to here is already roughed out. And again, just to show you the excitement of roughing out a bigger piece, we're going to finish this end. I left this end with a big old knot in it, so who knows where that's going to go, but we're gonna work through it. Any questions before I go? Can you hear me all right? All right. Didn't plug the lathe in yet, but we do have power. Okay. So again, I'm just using a standard roughing gouge for those that are new. Just going to rough the corners off. I'm going to take it slow, spin it first to make sure there's no contact with the tool rest. The other thing, I on this project, I do not turn the lathe on and off. Okay, this is big and chunky, and depending on the orientation, I want to know and set the speed of it. So the way I turn it off is I turn the speed to 0. That way, turn it on, I turn the speed up. It's never going to start at 1,000 RPM, and I've lost where it is. I'm going to turn it from 0 to the speed I want. Okay. Right now it's sitting at 0. I'm going to slowly wind it up. At this, about 900. Okay, the ABCs are turning, anchored on the tool rest, find the bevel, and then cut, anchor, find the bevel. Just roughing the corners. So far, no sign of that knot. Cutting's fairly smooth. I'm not round yet. Still bouncing. I still have square corners. So far, so good. No knot. Now, just take a note. Right off of this edge right here, I'm cutting. I'm there. It's an interrupted cut. I've got cherry and walnut, but then there's no waste wood here. Okay. So when I get off here, you can hear a little tapping. It's interrupted. Okay. But I got rid of the knot. It is round. I'm going to keep rounding it down. Now I'm going to go in and remove material from this edge. I'm still going to use the gouge, but I'm going to turn it, close it, and I'm going to cut with the edge of the gouge, almost like a parting tool. Okay. I'm going to adjust my tool rest here to get it closer. I never move my tool rest while it's spinning. Get it in closer. And my tool's not hanging out quite so far. I'm going to finish roughing this down. Again, here, I'm basically taking it down to this size. This is where my spear is going to be. Okay. So I'll just finish roughing this down. Get that material out of the corner. Okay. Now you can thank me for not having to watch all of that material get roughed off for 20 minutes. There was a parting tool, the width of a parting tool that I cut down through. Okay. So I'm going to go back, set the size here. I'm going to go back with my parting tool. I want to define this edge deeper. So I'm going to use a parting tool and my calipers to measure my depth. To get some more of that material out of the way. Okay, coming back to the parting tool. It's difficult to see. You can't see it from this side. In fact, if you go to camera 3, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to go in here until I cut, and then I'm going to use my calipers to measure. When it gets to that thickness, the calipers will slip over, and I know I'm the right side. So I'm doing the same exact thing over here. Okay. I'm going to widen that groove. The calipers are grabbing a little bit. Still not there. Just there. It's just sliding over. So now I know I'm an identical size. So then I'm just going to finish roughing this down, but I want to put a tenon on this end so that I can grab it in a chuck. And my tenon will be about 2.5 inches. No, it'll be just over 2 inches. I'm going to set these real quick. Okay, I've got a little ways to go. A little more. Almost there. That'll be good. Now, I'm just going to get rid of a little bit more material, and then we're going to start the sphere. It's going to clear a little bit of room here. Again, this I'm using a Bedan. It's a square thicker parting tool. So that's good for now. We're not going to cut that. That'll be for later. Now we're going to focus on the sphere. Okay. So, Dave, if you could capture the ball down, or just focus the camera with camera one. So we're now going to transition and cut that sphere. Okay, 6-inch ball. Again, on here, I've got cherry, walnut, poplar. The poplar is wastewood. Okay. You could cut a sphere with just the walnut and cherry, but you can't sand it well on the lathe because it's square and the corners will not behave well. I find it easier to turn a sphere and sand it than with the wastewood than a rectangular block. Okay, so if we can now go to camera one, back to the slideshow, or I'm sorry, camera 4. I promise I will not make this a math quiz, but just to give an idea, turning a sphere is done by approximating it with, you start out as an octagon. You see the octagon on the screen up there. The octagon fits out around the corners of the sphere. We're going to make an octagon out of this. That's the first cut. Okay. So I've already laid this out. The first leg of the octagon is already laid out right there. The second leg of the octagon is already laid out. It's from here down on the side. You can't see it. I've got a mark down on the side. The other leg is laid out here down to the side. But I need to mark that side because I just established it. So I'm going to put my point here, mark my side in there. And so then the first step is going to be knock the corners off to turn it into an octagon. Okay. So I'm just going to transfer my line over here so I could see it. I'm sorry, the camera can't pick this up well. Turn it on very slow. Now I've got my corner mark. So my cut is simply, I'm going to knock the corners off, going from this line here, give the camera 310, this line here to this line here. And then I'm going to go from this line here to the one over here. It's going to be an 8-sided figure to start. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. I'm going to do this with a gouge. Just work my way down. You know what? Got the wrong center. One moment. Got a drive center, my tailstock. I wonder it was stiff. Much better. Okay. So again, now I'm going to cut those corners off on octagon. It's fully round. It's a spindle between centers. I can get it go up about 1,000 without a lot of vibration. And I'm just going to start working the corner. Working the corners down, kind of approximating that angle. Gonna move my tool rest a little bit. And I'm just connecting the points, going from point to point, the line on the top to the line on the side. Get close. I want to keep this line as straight as I can. Pretty close, about 1/16 of an inch. That's good. Okay. So let's count the sides of our octagon. You count this as 1. The underneath side of that is 2. The third one is here on the side, this end, that's 3. Top and bottom will be 4, 5. And I cut this will be 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I'm just going the other side to do the same exact thing. Cut corner to corner. Any questions? Okay, back up about 1,000 RPM, still using the roughing spindle gouge. Just cutting it on an angle. Getting there. Cutting pretty well. If you ride the bevel, keep it pretty straight. As I get closer, I'm going to take smaller and smaller cuts. Just so I don't go too deep. Almost there. One last cut. Kind of. Okay. So, got it in an octagon. Side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You squint, it looks like a ball, but still has major points on it. Okay. So where you go from here, now turn it into a 16-sided object. And I'm going to go and lay this out. I've already set up my divider. But now I divide these sections in half. Well, so that's the section right here over top. Splitting this side, I mark it right here. That takes you down to this point. Okay, and that's already marked by that corner. And I'm not going to take it all the way down on this side because that's going to be the spout. Go back up to the center here. That line's marked. Go from this corner down to here. Down to the corner I have right. That was there. Okay, actually, I'm a little ways away. Okay. And I'm going to mark these. There's silence. Everyone understands? Makes sense. I know this can be tedious, but it's a way to get to a nice shaped sphere without doing an eyeball. So now I'm going to split those in half again. I've already got those dividers laid out. Okay. So if I split this in half, mark here, over that. That line's already there. Mark down the corner here. Split this in half. Go here. Split this in half. That already takes me down to that corner. One more time up top. See all right? Going here. That point's already there. Down the side. This next point's there. Up and down the side. That point. That point's there. Okay. We will. I'll mark these lines now. Stay with me. Excitement will come. At some point, I sing. So. Okay. So just if you were to intuitively look at this and say, where does that feel like a ball or where doesn't it? I've got a sharp point there. I've got a sharp point there. Need to get rid of those corners. So what do? I'm going to cut on an angle from this line here, you can see it, this line here. And the sphere is still within that shape. I'm going to cut these two corners off. Then I'm going to start cutting this corner. Okay. And I do need to come back and get this line back down a little bit where it belongs. I stopped a little short. Okay. Now, I'm going to go after that one right there. Knock the corner off. Line to line. Line to line. Knock this corner off. Okay, good. Looking closer like a ball. It still has a corner point. We go one last time. We divide these sections. One there. One there. There. One to this point. I didn't come far enough. Divide this in half. Divide this one in half. Divide this one in half. By dividing it, you're making a better approximation of where the sphere lies within the shape. What's that? The enter points. Exactly. But then right after these, you get to the point where you can do it. The whole rest of the shape is by eye. That's it. You've got it roughed out well enough. From now, you can buy spear jigs. They have jigs that will swing an arc and cut. I actually have one. I've used it. Um, Depending on the type of wood, they can bite a little bit. They can take gouges. I kind of depending on the material, I've kind of come to the point where I like this method because, well, it takes a little bit of time to lay out. You can see where you're going. Okay, so now if I feel the points, I've got a point down here, one here, one here, here, here. I'm just going to cut those corners off line to line. Did I miss one? Thank you, I did. Great catch. Thank you. Okay, first bump is this one right here. Take that off line to line. Now the cuts are really small now. We're getting to the point where it's almost getting round. Got that one. Got that one. Got that one. Corner. Got that one. It's tougher to get to from this angle. I'm going to go in there with the skew on its side and scrape it. Missed one right here. And I missed one more. I can see it right here. Here in the corner. Around. So now, here's where I stop with the layout. And I stand back and I look at the outside. And I can feel where the bumps still are. And now I will shape it the rest of the sphere with the scraper. And I'll get it close, but I'm not going to take as much time as I might when I had a little more time. So I'm just going to round it. And my very center point that was at 6 inches, I'm not cutting that line off. I'm going to keep that middle line there. Swinging around the corner to get rid of the vibration. I could tell this line still remaining here. I've got a little low point there that as I've smoothed it, I haven't been able to get rid of it yet. So I'm just going to see how little I could take off to get there. Lastly, I'll go to the other side. So we're not perfectly round. I can see spots, especially if I look at the white. The white has a little bit of an egg shape. So what I would do is I'd spend a little more time, especially down around these corners. If it's not a true sphere, I will shape this to get this as round as I can possibly get it. See the one here, result of using this technique. Thank you. But that's how you do the rounding part on the sphere. Yes. Great question. If we could go to the slide or computer on 4. Yes. So go back one slide. Again, I won't make it a math explanation all night, but the universal, just the calculation of an octagon is the diameter you want, which here was 6 inches, times 0.414. That's the size of the leg, one side of the, okay? So if you wanted a 5-inch one, you take 5 times 0.414, and that's the size you lay it out. If you want a 3-inch one, it's always 0.414 times that. That's just the geometry associated with an octagon. All right. And if you want more, I could share this, but I didn't want to go into the full explanation. But this is how you create the sphere. Again, it would probably take me another 25 to 30 minutes now to shape this down to where I'm pleased with it's nice and round. Okay. But I won't bore you with that. But you can see this gets you the generalized shape of how we get there. So this was the turning in this axis. This is now round. I'm going to do a little work here on the top. This is the top. This is the bottom. So I'm going to do a little bit of shaping on the top. Show you that's pretty basic spindle turning, but you kind of design it the way you like it. I'm going to go in with a spindle gouge. And now I'm just going to shape the top the way I like it. round this over. I want an undercut on this side, kind of a half bead here. Round it in. Again, you make this the shape you like of your own. And I'm going to call that good for now. I am going to quickly measure a ½ inch here. Let it cool. So depending on the length you have here, you could part this off and make the top out of this piece. Okay. I don't have enough length here, so I'm going to make the top out of a different piece. But this is going to be that size. And I'm going to part it not off. I'm just going to give myself a working mark there. Okay. And then, so I don't have this in the chuck. I'm going to do the drilling on that piece. But this is how I form the top. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to shape the bottom. The bottom is roughly the same shape, except it's a little bit wider base. Okay, and you can picture it out. But I shape it at this point, and then I would get it done to spinning in this axis. Okay, all the work done spinning here will be done. Also, when I get done with the sphere, I would sand it all while I still have it between centers. Because once it comes off and I start to take off this waste wood, I can't sand it between centers anymore. Okay, so that the piece on the table, I sanded all the way down to the finish size I wanted, had the perfect sphere, had it where I wanted, and now it's ready to turn in the other direction. Okay, so if we, this is the top, the bottom would have a base, and then we would typically drill at this point, and I use a 5/8 inch drill, but I'm going to do that on the next piece. Any questions on this before I take it off? Great question. I did not finish it. Correct. Now, I got the sanding all the way up to 340. The majority of it. I don't finish it because there might be some minor blending when you turn it from the other axis, but all of the sanding on the round part, it's all roughed in and finished to the point where I don't need to remove a lot of material. Okay, great question. All right, you don't need to see me stand. So I'm now going to take this off. This one, for all intents and purposes, is in the same condition that this one is. However, I neglected to say that before I put it on the lathe to rough it, on one side, I drill an 1/8 inch hole, which is present right here on my center point. So I have that preserved. I just took this all the way to the walnut. And on this side, I drilled a 1 inch hole on center, took it all the way to the wall. Okay. And I did that before I roughed it, because as soon as you turn this material off, you lose your centers. And that's where it's hard to find the center of a sphere. Okay. So now I'm going to go to this piece. Same condition. You need to switch. I'm going to go to a chuck now. We're going to turn it in the other orientation. I'm going to use kind of a large set of pin jaws. Okay, if you go overhead, you can. So these smaller jaws, I'm gonna expand those on the hole I have here. And I just need to take it out of this chuck. Yes. It is currently solid. Great question. When my wife saw it, she said, well, you obviously got everything out before you glued it up. And I said, no, it could be done that way. There's complications with that. You've got to have orientation of the parts you glue on. So it is currently solid. Now I'm going to put it this way. And no, this behaves itself rather well. What's that? Oh, thank you. And I screwed up. I took it off. Thank you. My mind was slipping. Drilling the end hole, you could argue, well, you could always go back in later. The trouble is, or the nice thing about once you have the end hole drilled in, it helps you when you're hollowing. It gives you an idea of your depth when you hit that hole. So thank you, Dave. I'm going to go back to drive center. I'm going to put this. Now I got to go back into the shots. All the things that I just did, I have to redo. But good catch. Okay. Pump it out. Going back to the chuck. Okay. Now I have like the way that happens. Never had that happen before. The bearing end of the center came right off. No, we're gonna. I don't have a pair of pliers here. I know we have the cover room. So. Sorry for the technical difficulty. I'm back now. What we're going to do is, while Dave's looking, we're going to reverse course again, drill that after I work on some follow. I just want to keep this speaking. Thank you, Dave. You saved the day. So I have chosen to use a 5/8 drill. And the reason I do that is by the time I drill this through, I know the wall thickness I'm going to here at the edge of the mouth. I want about an 1/8 to a 3/16 of an inch wall thickness there. I don't want it to get brittly thin or too fat. 5/8 is just what works for this design. So I'm going to slide this up. I'm going to zero this out so I can read my depth. So I'm looking, actually, I probably got the drill mounted. I need to get, in about 3. Okay, set this very near the edge, not touching the wood. Anchor this down. Okay. This out of the way. Lighten this up. I drill it about between 500 and 600 RPM. Okay. Spinning this, it's all clear. It's tightened in my chuck. I am going to hold the drill just to support it from vibration. The drill is standing still. It's not moving. The part's what's going to turn. So I turn it on slow. And here's another reason why I always turn the speed down to 0. So I'm not full start and it's going 1,000 RPM. Okay. I know it's going to start at 0. Run it nice and true. Get it to about 550. I'm going to hold it here and support it. And I'm just turning my quill in. My quill is at 0. Go in, back it off a turn, just to get some chip relief. Back it off. See, it's pretty stable. It's not wandering. Starting to get a little bit of smoke. Let me clear some chips. Now at 1 inch deep. That's more smoke than I'd like. Inch and a half. Someone maintain or monitor the fire alarms. All right, I'm not quite at 2 inches. See, it's staying pretty stable. We're getting there. About 2 1/4. Two and a half. The trouble with the Forstner bits, they don't clean the chips as efficiently as a fluted drill. Getting my workout. My right bicep is now twice as large as my left. What's that? Okay. We are as deep as we're going to get. So we have our hole. It still doesn't have a lot of volume to hold much liquid yet, but got the hole. Now it is time to start removing the waste wood, and then we're going to get inside. This I do need to change the chuck. And I'm going to go back to the pin jaws, feeling deja vu. But Dave, thank you for catching my air. Okay. Now we're going this way, from this way to this way. Okay. And this is where now you got to watch for these flopping around. This one, this, I forgot to say that. This, I put in the solid rectangular wood blank before I put it on the lathe. So I put an 1/8 inch drill on one side and a 1 inch on the other side. The 1 inch I know because it fits my pin jaws. Okay. So I slip this on here, all the way back tight. Actually, I'm going to bring in, hopefully the tailstock still works. So it's a big one. This, if all is well in the world, it should line up pretty close with that center hole. Give it a little bit of pressure to tighten it up as tight as I can against the base of the pin jaws. Now, tighten pin jaws. And they are tightening by opening up inside the 1 inch hole. I can feel the pine cracking. There's enough there. I'm not concerned about that. I also love the centering. Okay, so get this out of the way. So it's going to spin now. Okay, so that's where, again, if I had it set at 1,000 RPM, I turned it on, fly away. So now I'm going to get over here. Again, the pine on here, for those that can't tell because it's really close to the maple, the pine is here down. Okay, that's all waste wood. Okay, so I need to get rid of that and then allow us to get inside the maple and the walnut. Okay, so in here, and I am going to try to efficiently nibble away at that. You can use a pedan for a little bit, probably get in with a gouge. I'm spinning clear. Now I'm going to turn it up from 0. Getting a little vibration. Now it's settled back down. I'm about 500. Okay, not too out of control. I'm just a little high on my tool rep. 500. So I try to get my cut just a tad bit under the center, just a little bit under center. Trouble is the pedan, the pedan is so thick. See it there, that it's higher, its cutting edge is higher than all the other tools. So now by lowering it, actually I'm still a little high. The pedan is now right on center, but it's thicker, so it creates a little bit of a deeper adjustment. A little bit below horizontal, yeah. I'm probably horizontal to down a little bit. Yeah. Another reason why I like the bidan here is I can get all the tool pressure on the head. I just don't want to get too much with the gouge, pushing it away and trying to peel that off the face. Just what's that? Yeah, um I could probably do a push cut with the gouge, but I'm getting as much pressure as I can there. Um, okay, so I've got about 1/4 inch of pine left. I'm going to back this off, the tail stalk off, and I'm going to work to get rid of this plug. And then ultimately my goal is to get right to the edge of the maple. Then we're going to cut the features that we will mount the cap in, which will be in the form of a tenon. So this, I am going to use a gouge. Now I'm mainly in the center. Still it's about 600. Okay, now if Dave, you go to camera 1, please. Or 10. Let me show you the shape here. If you can zoom in on this. This is the shape of the hole that we're going to create. So it is a 2-inch diameter hole. And then this is roughly 2.5 inches. Okay. So this piece doesn't go in the flask, but it simulates what that edge is going to look like. You can see that. I'll pass this around. 2-inch hole. Then I'm going to create that 10. Then the cap is going to have a double lip. So the first smaller diameter will be just under 2 inches and it'll slip in. And this diameter will be a press fit in the tenon. So it kind of creates a double lock to keep it sealed. Okay. If we do put fluid in it, it creates a double lock and that'll be locked into the pot. So in order to create this shape, that's what we're ready to do. I'm going to drill a 2-inch hole through or halfway through. Then I'm going to cut this tenon. Okay. That's the shape I want it to be. And then I'm going to flip it around and hold on this tenon. Do the same thing with the other side. Okay. So this is a simulated front face of this. And this is a cap that does not yet fit purposely, doesn't yet fit. See what that's what we're gonna fit. But you can pass that around to get the idea. Any questions? Okay, time to go back to the drill. I'm putting in a 2-inch Forstner bit. The other nice thing about going with a drill is it's a uniform size. It's 2 inches on each side. I know the shape my cap's going to be. I don't, if I did it by hand, one might be 2 inches, 50 thousandths, and the other might be in 1 inch, 950 thousandths. So this will be true to size. I just drill the 2 inch. I probably could drill 2.5 if I had a Forstner. I never thought of that. You could probably do that. In fact, the way to do it would probably drill the 2.5 first, then to drill the 2 inches. That's a great idea. But for this purpose, I'm going to drill the 2 and then create the tenon with a bidan. Okay. But Dave, that's a great idea. I love that idea actually. Because it's uniform, and then it's easier to fit the caps. So yes, the nice thing is you can design the size of the flask to your thirst. Okay, so it could be bigger or smaller depending on your thirst, or depending if you like more or less olive oil stored in, depending on your use. Yeah, that's true. Now I don't drink much anything stiff. It's diet Coke is the stiffest I go. So all I need really is 12 ounces. So I'm going to get rid of my my tool rest. Same thing. I'm going to get in here. My main goal here, I'm not totally worried about the depth. My main goal is I'd like to get about halfway through the walnut. Okay. So I'm locked in here. I'm free to spin. Got my 2 inch. We go again about 500. I'm going to hold this. Dave, I really like your 2.5 inch drill idea. And then the 2. Okay, I'm into the maple. I'm still into the maple, no walnut yet. Still in the maple. I'm into the walnut. Just for curiosity, I'm going to measure one more time. The walnut was a little more than 2 inches. The maple was about a half. So halfway through this is 2 1/4. So that's where I'm going to shoot for. There we go. This doesn't seem to be burning as much as the end grain was, although this could be a sharper Forstner bit. The other thing the 2 inch drill does, it removes a lot of material without having to hollow it all out. Okay, How are we doing on time? Okay. Yes. I- that's a really good point. If if you didn't hear the question or the observation was I did not lock down the tool rest, although or the banjo, although I took the tool rest out, but Mark's point was that it could vibrate back in, get in the way. That's a very good observation. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good point. Okay. So now I'm just gonna clean up this face, get it to the point where I can see all the maple. Now I am gonna do a small push cut. Being careful, I don't want to cut too much into the maple and lose size. So I'm still, it's all pine. I'm gonna do full cut. And just at the glue line. In fact, there's a lot of glue. For the sake of time, I'm going to cut the tenon. So we can get some pollen done. This with the badan. Going to go in roughly a quarter inch. I'm too high. Yes, I know, because I realized I mismarked it. So good catch, good catch. Okay, I'm going to keep it move. I'm going to go a little deeper. I'm going to keep moving it along so we can get as far in this as possible without keeping it here all night. So we'll back this off. Take this out of the pin jaws. Now half of my my stock is gone. I'm going to change chucks. And I'm going to go to uh, got to think which way I'm turning. Clean out the fuzz out of the tenon. Okay. It fits. I'm just going to put my tail drive back in. Give me some support. This up. Put that leads it on there. Put some tension on it to seat it deep in the jaws. This chuck key is a little finicky tonight. Okay. Now we go at the same thing. Except, look what would happen. That's why you always spin it. Make sure it won't be in the way. Clear. The pine and the maple are so similarly colored, I'm having trouble distinguishing the two. Okay. Now I'm going to back the tailstock off. Get in front. I have a little less material to remove here because the 1-inch hole was there. I'm going to turn this off with the gouge. So she came out of the chuck. There's a bump, a bruise. But John, to your question earlier, I've had that happen before. We're going at it, and but that's not your fault. That was my decision to go that way. But go back in. Luster. Luster. The first one. If I had jaws that got that small. They're about 2 1/4 in. And you're right. If I got deeper, I would have more to grab on. So I didn't cut my tenon very deep. but that's all right. That's the antique look, right? Actually, I've got a substantial crack. I want to get to the point where you get taller. So I'm going to do one other thing safely. I'm not going to go back in that tenon, but I do want to show the hollowing technique. So we're going to hollow going in from the other side. Use the pin jaws with deep engagement. Still have enough stock on there. So it opening up. It is. And we're not going to use it. Well, I'm glad you saw it. So I'm going to talk about. At least I could talk about. And then I'll make some noise like it's working. Okay. So we can go the overhead cam. So I'm going to hollow with this round point carbide tool, an adjustable, indexable carbide tool. That's what I would hollow with. Okay. And what's interesting is, so as this is spinning, this is loose. I'm not going to turn it on. So I would hollow by coming in here. Okay. And my guideline, what I was doing is visually, I didn't want to cut the maple. That was kind of my visual guideline. Okay. I'm going to hollow out all the walnut and just scrape the maple. That's just my guide. So I come in here and with this round tool, maybe camera 3. So just start rounding through there. Okay. So I've got 2 inches out. This is 6 inches in diameter. So I've got another, I'll say 1.5 inches on the side. So I set up and I hollow halfway through. So I'm just coming in with a motion like that. Okay. It typically come out pretty efficiently. Then I go with another type of hollower. This has a bent head on. Okay. So this allows me to get right here and I can sneak in behind the maple, get a little bit deeper. Just gradually scrape it out. Okay. And what I was doing, I was going halfway through the wall. Halfway through the wall. Just get past the middle part. Okay. Get it to the point where it feels like the right depth. Then I flip it around and hollow the other half the same way. So they kind of overlapped in the middle. I didn't try to do it all from one side. Now, I'll give it, I don't know if this is bad advice. I don't think so if you're safe. For me, following like this was awkward. Okay. Because you got to be cutting on the down as this is coming down. This was awkward. Okay. Now push it back. So what I did at home is I turned it in reverse. Okay. So it's spinning this way now, but now I can cut straight in. I'm not hanging over it. I'm just directing right at it. And it cut very well. Okay. Just cut right at it. I can see what I'm doing. I'm not hanging over the lathe. And so you just have to remember that it's in reverse. Because you got to lock. Yes, I lock the chuck. Great point. Because if you don't lock the chuck and you're turning in reverse, as it gains force on the chuck, it will back the threads on. That's the one key. I've seen others turn in reverse. It's not. Well, and so I'm thinking of the demonstration. And so I'm like, well, am I going to climb over the lathe and turn my back to everyone and turn in here? I'm thinking how, so I practiced. I'm going to have to show it this way. Another great idea. Another great idea. If for those on Zoom that didn't hear that, Gary mentioned you can loosen the headstock, slide the headstock all the way down, and then turn at the end of the lathe. Great idea. Great idea. Didn't even think of that. I mean, I've done it, and I've never seen someone say it's unsafe. You have to be aware to lock the chuck to make sure it doesn't spin off, and to be cognizant that you're cutting on the right side of the path. Okay, but that's how I did it, and it's much more conventional. Now, Gary, yours is another suggestion that you could get right at it. Okay, I'm going to pass these tools around. Okay. So I turned that one in reverse, and it was fine. Okay, I'll pass these around again. These are easy wood tools. They're indexable tips. Take a look at those. So, I'm sorry you can't see the hallway. I kind of explained it, how it works. Any questions on that? Okay, going to go to the final part. We're in the last lap. So let's go to camera one. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. The bad thing is I've had stuff come out enough that it doesn't bother me. Not that I'm not careful, not that I don't care. It's just like to get all excited about it. So I'm good. Thank you. So let's talk about the design of the stopper. Okay. This actually, I'll say I've had some ideas from others, but this is how I chose to do it. So I took, if I had a walnut cap, that walnut cap, so 3/8 hole, put in a serrated dowel. Then I had some solid quartz. Okay. These turn like butter. Okay. So I just put them in these pin jaws, put them in the pin jaws, and I barely grip them just to keep them spinning. And I drill in 3/8 inch diameter hole. Well, I wanted it on center and straight. So you could, but so I turned the hole in it, cut the dowel to size, and then I use Type on 3 waterproof or glue that withstands water. I glue this on here. Okay. So this one is solid. Then so two things that we didn't get to show on this piece. So I papered this hole. So if you remember, I drilled 5/8 inch hole in here. Thank you, Dave. I drilled a 5/8 inch hole in here. And so that way I took this to the max size of the cork. First thing I did was I took my cork. You'll see once I had it on here, I put it in, I taped it, turned it down. So I left this little bit heavy 5/8. This, I didn't take anything off from this. I just tapered it there to 5/8 or a little above 5/8. So that when this gets to the bottom, it's snug and tight in that hole because the hole was 5/8. Okay. Then have this back on the lathe, holding it like this. Then they took a really fine fingernail gouge, went in, just did a full cut, pulled that out, forming that tape. Okay. Knowing I knew the size I needed it at the mouth. That was the size of the cork up at the top. So I just kept measuring it. I just gradually pulled it out. When the cork got to the point where maybe there was a 1/4 inch left where it was sticking, then I started to sand. I went in lightly with I kind of rolled up sandpaper, put it in there, sand it on the angle to the point where this slipped in. Got about 1/8 of an inch of compression. Okay, but I did all that turning just by chucking this up, and I turned the cork down to the paper, and I'll pass this around. And that's how I fit it into the hole. Okay. Then, now that it was fit in the hole, put this back on the lid. Caps were not in. It's hollow. Put the cap in, holding it this way in the duct, and I bring in tailstock. Got one here that I can. So it's got a rubber end on it. Okay. It came up, centered on there, allowed this to spin. So I turned big fat pop right down to the exact size. I turned it right while it was plugged in to the vessel. So I had the exact size. Okay. Then once I went from there, put the detailed beads on it. Okay, still out here. With this guy. Then eventually I moved away from this tailstock and went in with this had a little bit of stock on it with just a little bit of pinpoint in the tailstock. And I came in and cut it off, tapered that off. And then this was very stable. This had enough compression in it to hold the lid in. So I formed and sanded the whole top just due to the pressure that holding it. Okay, that makes sense. So how are we on time? I'm not going to take this long. Okay. So is that side simulated side piece there with the cap? We'll just go through this the last way. Any questions as we go? Pass around these corks. There is one other way, one other technique, and I brought this. I have seen where some people don't use a cork. They use a solid piece of wood. So you could just turn the solid piece of wood down to 5/8, get that to press fit. Or if you were Jacob, you could thread it and then screw that into the top. And that's a future project that I need to learn. But that's another option. So lastly, change jaws. Any other questions as I go? Okay, gonna mount this again. This is a simulated piece, as if this were hollowed, and it's what the outside of that looks like. So I just did this knowing I was gonna run short on time. Talk about fitting the cap. Okay. I got this, I roughed this cap in to get it to work close. The 2-inch fits. Actually, I just mounted the wrong. Now that I look at it. Rains and pours, but it didn't fall out of the leg. So that was good. Yep, that's all right. It's all right. Well, I've had harsher critics through my life, so it's all good. We've all been there. Okay. Thank you for your patience. Those on the Zoom call have to be in agony. Okay, your observation is going to be that I am located on the 2-inch, and that my tenon is very close to the jaws, and it is. But I also know I don't need to. It is almost there. It is a press fit. Okay. Last thing, without removing this is going to go. Those caps, I did on my CNC. I live in Fort Leboeuf School District. I'm a fan. So I put a bison on one side. I put bison words on the other. Okay. And to do that, I just simply got this fit where it is. I took the chuck off. I put the chuck on my machine. And then I zeroed off the center of this and then carved it. Okay. But I did all the fitting on the leg. For tonight, I'll just demonstrate a little, very briefly, what some other ideas you could do just on the lathe. So I like to round this edge over. Now, this could be great if you had a sorbet decorating tool, something like that. I kind of like to put some beads in. And so this is a D-Way beading tool. What's that? Yeah, it's perfect handmade. That's what you say. They're perfect handmade beads, but this beads with a beading tool. So this tool, see the top, it has a perfect bead form to it. Okay. You hold it flat and as it spins, it will create a bead. Anchor it, and you're just going to rock it lightly back and forth so it forms the full perimeter, if you will, of the bead. So I'm just going to pick my point. I think that looks good right there. See, you can see 2 points. Okay. Now if I get back in the same spots, and I'm just rocking it ever so slightly back and forth. And the deeper the tool goes in, the more of the bead it is cutting. Now, Dick Crop can cut beads like this with a gouge in his sleep, where he doesn't need a beading tool. But I guess if you got it, you use it. So you can see there, I am not at full bead yet. Probably, there's probably another 1/16 of an inch needs to go in. You just keep rocking. Slowly until you get the full formation of the bead. Keeping this horizontal. There, we have a fully formed bead. So, in the interest of time, I'm going to pass this around. I'll pass this tool around. You might put another bead in there, maybe a smaller one. You could do some decorating. Maybe you have the decorating out where you can put some other features in there. But there's just different ways that you can decorate this so that you can kind of highlight the glass. With really close. So I don't know if you've seen this yet, but I'll pass this around. I'm gonna wrap it now. Open it up for questions. Great question. Great question. So, the question is, how do you finish the inside? Okay. So, I'll hold it here. Let's pretend that I successfully hollowed it. Okay. So, to seal it, I used a two-part epoxy. like a tabletop epoxy. Mixed them up in even parts, and I used a paintbrush. And so I went in and I painted what I'll call the bottom half. Painted the bottom half. This is with both sides open. Okay. I painted the bottom half with the two-part epoxy. Flipped it over, but I didn't put it on so thick that it was running. Okay. It was wet, but it wasn't running. It wasn't beating up. And I just rolled it over, painted the bottom half on this side. Okay. So you can see the bottom. I didn't have to come up underneath. Painted both sides. Then I took it to here, and with the paintbrush, I went inside the hole, took strokes out. Okay. And then, by the way, mix the two-part epoxy, let it sit for a little while. So it was starting to set, but not running and not hard. Okay. So I knew when I put it on, it wasn't just going to run off. Okay. So I brushed it in, both sides, brushed the top, and then I set it upright so that if there was anything that was running, it would run to the bottom, not out the spout and screw up my fit with the cork. Okay. I also made sure that all of the epoxy around the opening, or that there wasn't any heavy rules or anything above it, so that it wouldn't run into my fits for the caps. Then I let it dry for a day. I put a second coat in. Okay. Then I took one cap, one of these caps that fit. Pass it around. Took the cap, and on the cap, on this pen here, I brushed epoxy in that. I brushed epoxy on the 2-inch part of the cap. So when it pushed it in, all that, the adhesive was going to be epoxy, going to seal that joint. And it's sealing it on the 2-inch surface, sealing it on this shelf, and I put a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch on the top of the cap. Not enough that it would squeeze out and be visible on the surface, but enough that it would adhere. So there was adhesive on the top, down the side, on the bottom, down the side. So seal the whole way. Once I got that in, and I flipped it over and went back in through the opening that wasn't capped yet. Took another paintbrush, I sealed up that joint with a doubly sure, and then let that dry. And I came back a couple hours later, and then I just filled it with epoxy again, the 2-inch gel in the top. Press that together. So all of the joints are sealed with epoxy. Then that took a good day or two to dry. And then I applied top 15. Actually, I only have one coat on that right now. With the humidity, it took a long time to dry. I had finish on that one on Saturday. It wasn't really dry until last night. I wasn't going to put another coat on, but it was dry here. I will eventually put another coat on. Good question. As I read the instruction, the question was, does the epoxy mess with my Diet Coke? I have read the health labels on the epoxy, and they claim it to be fully food safe. I will be honest, that's not going to be at my nightstand that I drink out of every night. But would I drink out of it? I would, based on what I read. That's a good question. I've not tried. Not tried. Other questions? No, actually, both caps are permanent. They're both glued in with the 2-part epoxy. You fill it through the top. Yep. And then it's got epoxy all the way out to the top of the spout, and the outside has white on poly. Again, whether people are going to use them as keepsakes or whether they're really going to drink out of them, that's for the user. But I just thought it was kind of a cool project, one that you kind of customize a little bit. I'd like to see the contrasting wood. The other challenge is you're turning it in 2X, turning it as a spindle, turning around, you're turning it in the other direction and follow it. So there are some challenges. So fortunately, that one went without a hit, without a flaw. And I even practiced some other ones. And tonight, it didn't quite go as well, but that's the way the wood turns. Did it have? Actually, there was a crack in the maple. I could see that crack. Then it is. So I don't know if it cracked as it got twisted, delayed, or as it fell, or maybe the wood wasn't quite so dry, and as it got drier, wood has a tendency to move and it can crack. So it's a possibility. We could go with that. That it was a material flaw. That the turning was impeccable, but it was the material flaw that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your patience and really good questions. I